Part 27. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 262. The steamed pork is cooked, and the aroma is overflowing. The color of the rice flour paste and the sauce makes people very appetizing. When you bite it gently, the meat inside is tender and delicate, and the fat part melts in your mouth. Your taste buds are full of delicious food. Lu Chang'an ate 1 bowl, Qin Yanan 1 bowl, and Zhou Dongdong, the kid who thought he would grow up quickly if he ate a lot, ate 2 bowls. The reason why she was not fed 3 bowls was that Zhou Shuling thought that Lu Chang'an always treated Zhou Dongdong like a pig. What if a child has been too fat since childhood and cannot lose weight in adolescence? Now Zhou Dongdong is chubby and cute, and she is still chubby when she is a teenager. I am afraid that Brother Chang'an will be the original sin that ruins Zhou Dongdong's beautiful girlhood. Then just eat 2 bowls. After breakfast, Zhou Dongdong held several bowls in his arms and walked to the pool. When he loosened his grip, the bowls fell down with a clatter. If my bowl breaks again, you will be in trouble, Lu Chang'an said without looking back. No, Zhou Dongdong said loudly, do you want me to help you wash the dishes? No. Would you like me to help you sweep the floor? No. The hard-working and friendly Zhou Dongdong had nothing to do, so he had to find a hoe to dig up the plastic chicken he had buried against the wall. It was a yellow toy chicken with a long body and a red mouth in the shape of an O. When pressed on its belly, it would make an unpleasant, piercing sound. Zhou Dongdong liked it very much. In 10 years, Zhou Dongdong will be a graceful girl, Qin Yanan said while looking at the little figure digging in the corner. People have to grow up, Lu Chang'an nodded. Little girls generally admire the big brother next door who grew up with them. There are many stories of girls who grow up and fall in love with the big brother next door. Qin Yanan looked at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked at Qin Yanan unhappily. I'm talking about a phenomenon. Qin Yanan looked back at Lu Chang'an without flinching. The big brother and the little girl are already in a perfect state, why do they need to mix in the things you mentioned? Lu Chang'an shook his head. People nowadays actually lack feelings, or are stingy about giving feelings, the more they like to play tricks. Some pure feelings, such as the feelings between men, which are passionate and touching, and a scholar who sacrifices his life for his bosom friend, are described by many boring people as base rot and the like. Those who do this are often women, and it is difficult for women to do so. Understand this kind of brotherhood among men, don't insult the men who sacrifice their lives and blood for their close friends. They are definitely not doing it for each other's assholes. These women seem to only know how to put everything in their minds besides sexual love and love. Understand? Stop talking nonsense. A person who talks nonsense every day is actually teaching me not to talk nonsense. Although Lu Chang'an's tone was a bit harsh, Qin Yanan was not very disgusted and had no intention of competing with him. He just smiled. You go back first. I have something to do during the day, so I'll come over in the evening. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Fine. Lu Chang'an watched Qin Yanan leave and turned to call Zhou Dongdong, who was washing the plastic chicken under the faucet. Zhou Dongdong is wondering why there are no centipedes to eat her chicks, even though she has buried them many times and wondered many times. Let's go catch the cicada monkey, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Dongdong. What kind of monkey is a cicada? It's the cicada. What is a cicada? Delicious. Let's catch a lot of them. Lu Chang'an borrowed a fishing rod from old man Qin, and found a ball of gel mud in Zhou Dongdong's school bag. It was something she usually used to throw on the wall and stick to it. You can buy a large ball for a few dollars. After fixing the gel mud on the top of the fishing rod, Lu Chang'an took Zhou Dongdong to catch cicadas. Zhou Dongdong was ready to catch cicadas by himself, but failed repeatedly. In order not to affect the ability to catch more delicious fish, Zhou Dongdong had no choice but to restrain himself from wanting to play, and followed Lu Chang'an's butt with a net bag filled with cicadas, acting as a follower. Zhou Shuling saw Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong going in and out. She didn't know what they were doing. She couldn't help but raise the corner of her mouth slightly. What she was most happy to see was Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong together. There was always something about it that made people smile and make them smile unconsciously. The feeling of a warm smile in my heart. People like Lu Chang'an, who get along well with the elderly and children, can also have a lot of positive influences on children. At noon, Lu Chang'an fried a large plate of cicadas and asked Zhou Dongdong to give a portion to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Dongdong and Zhou Dongdong ate the rest. It turns out that insects are so delicious. Zhou Dongdong leaned on the small chair, tilted his head back and looked at the sycamore tree above his head. From then on, the image of the insects changed in Zhou Dongdong's eyes. Not all bugs are delicious, Lu Chang'an warned cautiously, especially not eating them raw. Can spiders be eaten? Cannot. Where are the mosquitoes? Cannot. Where are the flies? You can just go eat shit. I do not want it. In the afternoon, Lu Chang'an painted the fan while reading, dried it and then applied tung oil on it. He worked all afternoon, tinkering and carving it carefully, and finally a passable oil paper umbrella was born. Passable, of course, is Lu Chang'an's vision for giving gifts. If it is just based on the standards of collection, it is a work of art with excellent charm. Lu Chang'an sent a message to An Nuan and made an appointment to meet on the evening of Chinese Valentine's Day. An Nuan told him that he could look forward to Kixi Festival, but not too much. It's not that it's impossible, it's that it's not allowed. Lu Chang'an smiled. The girl's thoughts are really interesting. Bai Hui sent a video, saying it was a dance she planned to upload to the website on Chinese Valentine's Day. Lu Chang'an didn't click on it, but just replied to the message. The singles on Chinese Valentine's Day are jumping around. Bai Fen was so angry that she didn't reply to his message. Zhong Qing also sent a message, expressing his gratitude, worded neatly, very polite and sincere, and Lu Chang'an replied read. Lu Chang'an often didn't reply to messages, and occasionally he would reply all at once. These messages were not all received at the same time. Have read. When Zhong Qing saw this reply, he couldn't laugh or cry. Lu Chang'an never seemed to follow common sense. Did he mean that he didn't care about her gratitude and didn't think it was necessary? Recently, after Lu Chang'an connected the power cord to the transport vehicle, he no longer entered the transport vehicle as frequently, or delivered food in as before, or gave lectures in it all night. Right, the third wife was still standing in the hotel. In front of the floor-to-ceiling window, he gently stroked the exquisite telescope. Yes. I have already listened to the recordings of Xiao Tang and Qin Yinan. From now on, they will only need to record when they are alone. The things where Xiao Tang sings and reads are really noisy and unpleasant. Clear. The third wife nodded, lowered her head and looked at Lu Chang'an in the telescope as he left the community, then turned to look at the transport truck. It was not unreasonable for Qin Yinan and Zhu Huntang to think that Lu Chang'an was Yechinayu. This information shocked the third wife. The sources of the information were different, and the angles of observation were different. The conclusions reached were incredibly different. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 263. The third wife couldn't help but think of some sweet past events of the young girl Sumei. At that time, Sumei used her own body to frame Yechinayu, but in the end she really lost her body. Didn't Ziking tell you that I am invulnerable? He said these mocking words while entering her body. At the beginning of the last century, the Ye family was on the verge of bankruptcy. Sumei used her private money and several houses and tea gardens as dowries as mortgages to buy a lot of properties that the Ye family had sold off and mortgaged at low prices. At that time, due to the Qin family has bank connections and the Ye family still has some respect in the Chamber of Commerce. It is inconvenient for the old man of the Su family to directly support Sumei, but he still appreciates what this ruthless and unkind granddaughter has done, and quietly told her to be reliable. The shopkeeper secretly gave appropriate help to Sumei in raising money. Sumei could have had a good meal, but things suddenly changed. A small part of the shops that the Ye family had mortgaged at low prices were actually redeemed at the scheduled price, and then she said that before the expiration date, they will all be redeemed. The aunt brought Qin Peng to play at home, and Sumei heard that a young master of the Ye family had returned. It was this young master who turned things around and saved the Ye family from the fire and water. How can you be willing to spit out all the fat you have eaten in your mouth? Sumei was really unwilling to give in and decided to meet the eldest young master of the Ye family in person. So while her aunt was summering at the Su family's house by the lake, Sumei took Qin Peng to ride in a car. Cars were still very rare at that time. The Su family owned the first Rolls-Royce purchased from overseas at that time. Rolls-Royce was founded in 1906. The Silver Ghost, launched the following year, was soon hailed as the best car in the world. Sumei's father, who was buying arms for the private army overseas, saw this model. The car cost a huge amount of silver. It took more than a year to successfully purchase the car after going through numerous procedures and relationships. It was delivered back before Sumei's birthday. The car drove all the way to the Ye family. Sumei arranged for Qin Peng to call Ye Saijin out to play without leaving any trace. She also met Ye Chinayu, the eldest young master of the Ye family and now the head of the Ye family. That year, she was young, with a smile on her face and a slightly shy expression. She stepped out of the car, stepped on the wet bluestone pavement in front of Ye's house. Her skirt swayed, and only the cute peach blossoms on the toes of her shoes were exposed, and she slowly walked up to Ye Chinayu. In front of him, he looked at him with slight curiosity. "Brother, this is Sister Mei. She is very powerful. Sister Mei can settle accounts at the age of 3. She is definitely not as powerful as her eldest brother, who knows how to wear a shirt. What's the use of an iron shirt? It's just invulnerability. He, ha." The corners of Sumei's mouth were slightly raised, showing a childish smile towards the yellow-toothed child, but she was thinking in her heart that Ye Chinayu was probably frivolous and liked to talk nonsense, so he probably deceived Qin Peng. "This is the first time we meet. The little girl from the Su family is so awesome." Sumei looked at the gentle smile on Ye Chinayu's eyebrows, but she was shocked. This person was not easy to deal with, but he seemed to see through her slight smile. "If you want to eat the Ye family, you must first get rid of the sun to avoid long nights and dreams." Sumei lowered her head shyly. "Cousin is joking." In a flash, so many years have passed. I always thought that time hastened to make me grow old, and my face in the mirror had changed, but my beauty had not diminished at all. But if he was not in the coffin and had no choice but to find her, but became another person who was free and at ease, I must let her. He knows the resentment a woman feels after suffering for 100 years. The third wife moved the telescope and could no longer see Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an was still measuring the streets of Juncha with his legs. According to statistics, the number of humans born after the end of World War II was equal to the total population since the emergence of humans before. This also means that all kinds of absurd, fantasy, despicable, heroic, and beautiful things that humans have done in history are likely to happen repeatedly within these years. What fun! Lu Chang'an was thinking about these things, and couldn't help but think that if he lived for too long, his memory would become data, just like a movie stored in a computer. It has not been deleted, but it will rarely be clicked again. All kinds of memories before the emergence of human civilization, probably this is the state, and for him, the recent memory is like a shortcut placed on the desktop, which he can click to use at any time. Ye Saijin was a shortcut in his memory. Lu Chang'an was very patient, but if it weren't for Ye Saijin, he wouldn't have cooperated with Qin Yan'an and Zhu Huntang's temptations. Lu Chang'an walked to Lushan Mountain and pressed the elevator door. Qin Yan'an opened the elevator. Lu Chang'an walked up and saw Qinyanan wearing the cheongsam customized by explanation. She had a graceful figure and elegant temperament, with a slight frown between her eyebrows. A cool woman always makes people feel extremely beautiful when she wears this kind of clothing. I saw you walking slowly up the mountain path upstairs. How about taking the cable car? I mean, do you want to buy a car? It will be more convenient to go to school. No money. I send you. The car is troublesome and inconvenient. Lu Chang'an shook his head. I like walking. I walk and run everywhere I go. Have you seen Forrest Gump? I can do better than Forrest Gump. Run. Of course, you are not an ordinary person, Qinyanan said meaningfully. Are you wearing this cheongsam to reenact the scene that night? Lu Chang'an said, pointing to her cheongsam. I think dressing like this will induce Ye Sijin to appear in my mind. I hope you have a good talk with her this time. If she has any unfulfilled wishes, we can help her fulfill them, Qinyanan said seriously. He said, his tone gentle and sincere. Ye Sijin's unfulfilled wish is to marry Ye Chinayu. Your great-grandfather believes that marrying you to me is a substitute for her unfulfilled wish. Lu Chang'an shook his head. How can you help her fulfill such a wish? Although Lu Chang'an did not say that Ye Chinayu in his mouth was him, it can also be understood that the unfinished love between Ye Sijin and Ye Chinayu is impossible for their descendants Qinyanan and Lu Chang'an to complete, but Qinyanan still firmly believes that Lu Chang'an deliberately mentioned Ye Chinayu's name, just being stubborn. Ye Sijin's unfulfilled wish is to marry Ye Chinayu. Qinyanan didn't believe it. This was too ridiculous. Qinyanan's heart beat a little faster. Could it be that the man Ye Sijin was lingering with in his dream was really Ye Chinayu? I hope I can test it out tonight. Qinyanan is already ready. Lu Chang'an was also prepared. He didn't care too much about Qinyanan knowing the secret. He just felt that the time was right, so he naturally told her. Now that she is so eager for confirmation, in addition to the curiosity that normal people have, there is there any other reason to prove that he is Ye Chinayu? Maybe, Lu Chang'an felt that Qinyanan had some secrets that he hadn't revealed, maybe related to her birth, or related to the coffin. In short, she was testing him, and Lu Chang'an was just using his tricks. If she wanted to know his secret so much, then he would tell her she is fine, as long as she is willing to exchange her secret. The current monthly ticket count is 1,504. By 6 p.m. tomorrow, if the monthly ticket reaches 1,600, I will have 3 chapters in one. If I can get 1,700, I will have 4 chapters in one, and so on. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 264. The chapter names are in the wrong order, but the content has been adjusted and does not affect reading. Qinyanan stopped mentioning Ye Sijin's wish and asked Lu Chang'an if he wanted to eat something. Lu Chang'an thought of Sume. Women always like to use some extremely stupid tricks when they think they are special or when they make stupid plans, so Lu Chang'an refused. Qinyanan made a fried pear chicken. This is a good time to eat fried chicken with pears. Qinyanan is not only very good at cooking, she is also very particular about what dishes are suitable for eating at any time. The weather is dry at this time, so eating something that moisturizes the lungs will make people feel more comfortable. Powerful families pay much more attention to health care than ordinary families. This seems to be a habit, even if she is in excellent health now. This local chicken for stir-fried chicken with pear is healthy and slows down the coldness that starts in late summer and early autumn. Slice the breast meat of the local chicken, season with seasonings, add cornstarch to make a paste, slice the pear, wash the mushrooms, and tear the fungus. Cut green onion into pieces, cut diagonally into sections, heat the wok red, heat 3 ounces of pork, add peppercorn oil, add chicken slices and stir fry, then add other ingredients, add pear slices when the pot is ready, stir fry evenly and put on a plate. Qinyanan didn't eat rice, so she took the plate and sat next to Lu Chang'an, who had expressed her rejection. The aroma was lingering in her nose. Lu Chang'an was reading a book and glanced at the dinner plate. Qinyanan ate slowly and sat next to him. There was a fist between the two of them, but she leaned over and almost touched Lu Chang'an with her knees. Then she chewed next to Lu Chang'an with a fork and looked at Lu Chang'an with a smile. It tastes really good. This chicken was killed in the afternoon, and the chicken breast was left to make this dish. A mountain village owner gave it to Secretary Zhao. It's hard to eat in Juncha. The key, this is my craft. Qinyanan was eating. While explaining, he took a piece of chicken that was fragrant, passed it by Lu Chang'an's nose, and then stuffed it into his mouth. Lu Chang'an turned a deaf ear and looked at the book in his hand carefully. Qinyanan forked another piece and put it to Lu Chang'an's mouth with a smile. Does it smell good? I know I won't eat it, but I'll give it a try after smelling it. Lu Chang'an glared at Qinyanan, then quickly bit into the tender and juicy piece of chicken, moving his lips and teeth together to claim it. Qinyanan couldn't help but laugh, wiped her lips with a napkin, and went to get another cutlery. Eat it, are you still worried about me drugging you? Lu Chang'an started eating without saying a word and did not respond to Qinyanan. When eating food, you should eat the food well. Aren't you afraid of spitting into the food when you talk all the time? Quite disgusting. This is one of the joys of cooking for others. After a while, Qinyanan looked at the bare dinner plate and cleared away the tableware with satisfaction. Lu Chang'an continued to read. After Qinyanan simply cleaned up, she cut the fruit, put out a fruit plate, and asked Lu Chang'an what he wanted to drink at the water bar. Lu Chang'an asked for a glass of orange juice. The orange juice is made with sparkling water. It tastes like Fanta, but not as sweet. Qinyanan also put some colorful ice cubes in it, which looks like a drink for children to drink. Qinyanan mixed her own wine and sat on the sofa opposite Lu Chang'an. The woman wearing a cheongsam showed off the most attractive qualities of this dress as soon as she sat down. Qinyanan didn't mean anything else. Did she just wear a cheongsam? Don't sit down? What's more, Lu Chang'an is not that kind of wretched person. Qinyanan sent a few messages to Zhu Huntang, who was trying to keep an eye on the progress, and replied to the current situation, and then looked at the historical anthology in Lu Chang'an's hand. How do you view the 19th century from your perspective? Qinyanan put down her phone and looked at Lu Chang'an casually. People born in the 19th century have not yet died, and it is not time to draw conclusions about the 19th century. Lu Chang'an shook his head. If you were born in 1899, you would be 118 years old if you lived to this day. Qinyanan has never heard of the saying that people from a certain century must be dead before they can comment on that period. This has always been the case with history. Darwin met Harriet in the Galapagos Islands in 1835. When Harriet died in Australia in 2006, the last living creature with Darwin's obvious markings also died. Now, it's time to commemorate Darwin. Lu Chang'an also answered casually. Why is this? Darwin has been commemorated countless times after his death for so long. Qinyanan objected to Lu Chang'an's view from the perspective of a pure observer of time. On April 14, 1912, when a ship sank, there was a baby on board who survived. He did not pass away until November 2007. From then on, the shipwreck became real history, rather than still existing somewhere in the memories of those people's personal experiences. Why must everyone in a certain period of time die before it can become real history? Qinyanan couldn't understand. This is my point of view. You don't have to accept it, and I don't want you to accept it. I'm not interested in arguing with you or convincing you. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Go to bed early. Are you so arrogant when talking to an Nuan? Qinyanan looked at Lu Chang'an in confusion. No, when I talk to her, It's whatever she says. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Qin Yan'an grabbed the pillow cushioning his waist and threw it at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an avoided it, then sniffed and frowned uncertainly. What's wrong? Qin Yan'an's attention immediately shifted to Lu Chang'an's expression. You just had gastrointestinal movements. After the food residues fermented, some gas expanded and overflowed. Lu Chang'an pointed to the pillow. It stinks. I didn't, Qin Yan'an blushed. She didn't fart at all, not to mention that she was using it to pad her waist. Although her waist is not as long as that of ordinary girls of the same height, it does not reach her buttocks with the help of a lumbar cushion. Oh, I was just kidding. I'm laughing at you. Qin Yan'an stopped swearing and threw the pillows on the sofa at Lu Chang'an one by one. Lu Chang'an looked like he was avoiding them, but he felt that the strength and speed of those pillows were much higher than the upper limit of ordinary girls. If Qin Yan'an was born from the coffin, as Lu Chang'an expected, it would not be an ordinary person's body. Quality. Lu Chang'an was very interested in Qin Yan'an's body. Research-based, not male-oriented. He had previously thought about analyzing the similarities and differences between Shang Guandandan and himself through biological research, but Shang Guandandan was hiding in the coffin and could not come out. Could Qin Yan'an be considered the same person as Shang Guandandan? Take your time, there will always be something gained. Even if there is no harvest for the time being, like nothing was gained during Professor Liu's time, there will always be a point in time in the future when enough technological power will explode to answer the current unsolved mysteries. Cousin, don't be angry. Look, your hair is messed up. Lu Chang'an avoided Qin Yan'an's last pillow and said calmly. When Qin Yan'an heard Lu Chang'an calling her cousin, she felt indescribably weird. This weirdness diluted the irritation just now. She glared at him angrily and hurriedly went to fix her hair. A girl's hair should never be messy except when she is alone, because messy hair will make her lose her temperament and make her look completely different. Men are different. Neat and messy hair are just two completely different temperaments, both equally handsome. Lu Chang'an casually scratched his hair. Qin Yan'an went to fix her hair and spent more than 10 minutes. When she came out, she put a pair of pajamas in the guest room and said to Lu Chang'an, I bought a new laptop and put it in the guest room. You can watch the surveillance in the guest room. The slippers are in the cloakroom, and I put snacks in the small refrigerator under the desk, as well as the pigtails I made myself, vacuum packed. You made the pigtail yourself? Why don't you eat it while it's hot? Lu Chang'an said with great regret. The pigtail is delicious, and Qin Yan'an's craftsmanship should be good. Qin Yan'an was a little helpless. The focus of his response was just the pig's tail. Shouldn't he nod and praise her as a woman for her thoughtfulness at home in these small things? Qin Yan'an ignored him. Why didn't he eat it while it was hot? Don't you know? Stupid man. It's just as delicious after heating it in the microwave. After Qin Yan'an finished speaking, he went to take a shower. Lu Chang'an put down the book and went to look for pigtails in the small refrigerator in the guest room. After all, books can be read slowly and the feeling will be the same whenever you read it, but eating food in your mouth immediately is a stronger temptation. Lu Chang'an felt that Qin Yan'an was different from Su Mei after all, so when Qin Yan'an changed back into the Cheongsam after taking a bath, she saw that Lu Chang'an had already eaten a large portion of pigtails. So you are so good at eating. Qin Yan'an sighed with emotion. It's no wonder that birds of a feather flock together and smell alike. After a woman takes a bath, her whole body exudes a fresher and more charming fragrance, with a slightly moist breath, as delicate as a flower, as if the worldly dust she has acquired during the day has been washed away, and the taste is probably like a piece of snowflake steak on a frying pan. I eat only when it tastes good. Clearing the food is the greatest compliment to workers, and it is also the basic etiquette of diners. I only heated up one portion, and watched the surveillance for the remaining portion before eating. It's okay to eat too much at one time. It's greasy and tastes quite good. Lu Chang'an has now fully recognized Qin Yan'an's cooking skills. She doesn't know how others taste it, but she has an amazing natural ability to understand his taste. You have a sweet mouth, I'll reward you with one. What's the reward? I'm just talking about it casually. Qin Yinan was a little proud. It was actually the most satisfying to treat others in their own way. Lu Chang'an waved his hand, go to bed early. Qin Yinan nodded, turned around and walked into his bedroom. Without looking back, he warned, it will take a while for me to fall asleep. You can turn on the monitoring later. Lu Chang'an said took the book and turned it over. As he flipped through the pages, he felt like he wanted to close his eyes and squint for a while after a full meal. After most people have eaten full, the blood flows to the stomach, and the temperature of the entire abdomen increases slightly. The warm and swollen temperature makes people fall asleep. Sleeping at this time is very comfortable, but it is not good for the body. Lu Chang'an was not worried that sleeping with a stomach full of food would be bad for his health, so he decided to take a nap for a while. Qin Yinan was in the bedroom. Although she thought Lu Chang'an had not turned on the surveillance camera, she still put on safety pants in the bathroom. Qin Yinan also came into contact with a lot of psychological knowledge during this summer vacation, and knew that psychological cues are very important in leading a conversation, or in the process of guiding the other party, and his appearance and cheongsam are a strong psychological suggestion to Lu Chang'an, and even more it was easy for him to believe that she was really sleepwalking and turned into Yesijin. Cheongsam is a suggestive element for Lu Chang'an, otherwise he would not choose to give an Nuana cheongsam as a gift. He also said that his aesthetic was also influenced by Dai Wangshi's Rain Lane, so Qin Yinan chose in the room I composed a piece of music that collected the sound of rain, the soft patter, and the touching sound. Anyone with emotions will be affected by music, and the implications of music to people are subtle and silent, and emotions are often guided and not easily discovered. The most direct visual impact is also necessary. Qin Yinan adjusted the lighting to incandescent mode. 2 works by painters from the Republic of China period were hung on the wall. Their names were also famous. People who lived in Jiangsu and Zhejiang during that period must know that the feet at the end of the bed there are some small toys that little girls used to play with in the old days, such as cloth tigers, ceramic pears, bamboo embroidered handkerchiefs, and red thread for begging for tricks. These preparations may be of no use, but they may serve as a subtle hint, and they probably won't reveal any flaws. After Qin Yinan observed carefully, he went to bed and lay down. There is a cool breeze, and the mountain breeze blows from the half-open window. Qin Yinan felt the cell phone vibrating under the quilt. She was always thinking about things and had a very light sleep. When she woke up, she immediately remembered her plan. She remained motionless and turned off the phone with her fingers under the quilt. Then he slowly opened the quilt. Woke up to the sound of rain and music, my mind was very clear and comfortable. Fortunately, she didn't unconsciously take off her clothes and pants when she fell asleep today like last time, but she still carefully took off her safety pants. She had seen the previous surveillance. When she woke up from sleepwalking, they will all take off this failed invention of mankind that does not conform to the dressing style of liberated women at the beginning of the last century. Her movements are slow and sluggish, not very flexible, which makes her look more presentable, because her movements are careful and will not expose her. When it is not a relationship, no woman will really be careless just because he has seen her before. Clothing is not a woman's bottom line. Shame and reserve are. Lu Chang'an should be watching the surveillance at this time, right? He probably wouldn't stare at her all the time, but would glance at her from time to time, so before he walked in, he had to act out the symptoms of a sleepwalking patient who was suffering from Yesijin's upper body. Qin Yinan sat on the footrest at the end of the bed, picked up the red thread of cacao, wrapped it around her finger, and started playing alone. If someone is watching the surveillance, watching a cheongsam woman with white cheeks under a low-power incandescent light bulb, getting up quietly, and then playing with the red thread, this scene will probably make people feel a hint of coolness, a kind of coolness. The atmosphere of supernatural events. Why don't you come in? I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 265. Qinyanan played with the red thread for a while, talking about Lu Chang'an expressionlessly, and then picked up the little cloth tiger and put it against his cheek. At this time, the bedroom door was pushed open. The sound was extremely subtle, but it felt like air was flowing. Qinyanan was slightly nervous, but her psychological quality still stabilized her. She sat there with a blind eye and did not turn her head to look. He walked slowly to her, his step slow and leisurely. From the corner of his eye, Qinyanan saw a pair of bare legs of a man, wearing a pair of hotel slippers. He seemed to be wearing a hotel bathrobe, the kind that was spread open. No, I prepared new pajamas and bathrobes for Lu Chang'an. For people who have high quality of life requirements, it is not bad to be able to take away bathrobes priced at 1,000 or even thousands in the hotel, but after all, it is not bad. There are better alternatives. Qinyanan thought of a kind of male image on many TVs, that is, wearing a bathrobe with only a pair of underwear inside, or hugging him from left to right, holding a glass of red wine in his hand. The corner of his eye slowly moved up, it turned out to be true. What's wrong with Lu Chang'an? The cool breeze is trustworthy, the autumn moon is incomparable, the feeling of love is like passing the day like a year. This is Leslie Cheung's 1988 song Autumn Hate on a Passenger Journey, and Lu Chang'an actually sang it. No, this is not Lu Chang'an's voice. Qinyanan suddenly raised his head and saw Ma Weiming, who had just apologized to him and would never harass her again, standing in front of him, looking at Qinyanan with a feeling look. In such a deep night, a strange man, a man who should never appear at this moment, shocked Qinyanan, and for a moment he felt vaguely like he was dreaming. Xiao Shenma's surname is unknown. She is a beautiful woman named Yanan of the Qin family. When they see her, her voice matches her temperament and admires her. She is also talented and beautiful. Today, it is difficult to see each other because we are separated from each other. Therefore, the lonely boat is silent and the evening scene is cool. Ma Weiming, why are you here? Qinyanan finally came to his senses and couldn't help but look gloomy when he heard that Ma Weiming was still singing the adapted version of Autumn Hate on a Passenger Journey. I said I won't come to Lushan Mountain to view the scenery again, but I'm going to get a room in this hotel to relax and free myself. Isn't it weird? Ma Weiming pulled his bathrobe and didn't want to use it. The belt means to tie it up. Then you should be in your own room instead of coming to my room. Qinyanan's face was so gloomy that it could drip. This Ma Weiming must have lost his mind and gone crazy. Qinyanan actually didn't feel that losing his ponytail was such a loss. Reason is very strange. When a man reaches a certain level, when he is particularly swollen, he would like to know what kind of control he has over certain people and things he cares about, just like some men with high status will routinely when women use force. In addition to desire, it is often more of a kind. I want you, but you don't give it to me. I can't control you. It's just such a mentality. This mentality is also reflected in the relationship between the boss and his secretary or assistant. He will try to control the life, emotions, and even body of the secretary or assistant to show his control, just like a dog peeing to show that this is its own territory. There is no essential difference. I can't sleep alone. It's autumn and it's cold. Don't you need someone to warm the bed? Ma Weiming turned around and locked the bedroom door, squeezed the door handle, and walked away slowly. Qinyanan secretly cursed that Lu Chang'an must have fallen asleep after eating enough. He didn't really trust her in the first place, and he wasn't as concerned as last time. Regarding monitoring her sleepwalking this time, he probably had a perfunctory attitude, so he didn't even care whether she was sleepwalking or not. Qinyanan secretly sighed. After all, he had never thought of this possibility. He should have had a better memory a long time ago. Lu Chang'an couldn't reason with common sense. Qin Yinan's heart was full of resentment after his failure, so he raised his head and stared at Ma Weiming, who was so impudent in front of him. Qin Yinan was more or less surprised that Ma Weiming would do such a thing. After all, a reasonable person would be really scared if he thought about her identity and the consequences. But who cares about his motives at this time? Qin Yinan sneered. Although she wouldn't kill Ma Weiming directly, she would at least take half of his life. Beauty, come here. Ma Weiming opened his arms and rushed towards her, like a wealthy young man playing with the maid in his room. Qin Yinan easily avoided it, turned around and kicked Ma Weiming from behind, and landed mercilessly on Ma Weiming's lower back. To Qin Yinan's expectation, Ma Weiming steadied himself after stumbling and turned around as if nothing had happened. It takes some effort. Ma Weiming stretched out his hands from the thick long sleeves of his bathrobe and touched his waist. Miss Qin, do you know about the Nikola Tesla Medical Research Center? What? Qin Yinan didn't pay much attention to Ma Weiming's unexpected skills and physique, but he wanted to mention a medical research center at this moment, which made Qin Yinan a little concerned about what this research center did. Because my body is abnormal, I can't help but become concerned when I hear about these medical research centers and biological research centers. Never heard of that. Ever since I was bullied twice by your suitor last time, I secretly vowed to avenge my shame. I happen to know the president of the Nikola Tesla Medical Research Center, and he told me that they were studying a genetic medicine that can significantly improve a person's physical fitness in a short period of time. Haha, have you watched too many science fiction movies? Qin Yinan still sneered, but he was still doubtful in his heart. He even began to wonder whether the reason for his own body mutation was related to these unknown experimental scientific and technological achievements. If it hadn't been effective, how would I have dared to appear in front of you? If you had kicked me just now, I would have been lying on the ground. Ma Weiming smiled and stretched out his hand. Miss Qin, there was a fight on the bedside. End of the bed. Please continue. Play slowly during the long night. Qin Yinan was not reckless, he just took 2 steps back. If he really used this kind of genetic medicine, what abilities would he gain? Qin Yinan knew nothing, so he would naturally be more cautious. At this time, Ma Weiming rushed over again, still in the same posture as before. This was not the attack method of a master fighter at all. Qin Yinan was ashamed and angry when she saw him blocking her body and throwing her on the bed. Qin Yinan still quickly avoided Ma Weiming's sideways attack and struck her with an elbow. It fell on Ma Weiming's shoulder blade from behind. Qin Yinan did not hold back this time. A normally strong man would have his shoulder blades broken and lose the ability to move instantly if he took her. She tried hitting the steel plate with her elbow. Although it was impossible to break through, the degree of deformation made her aware of her own strength. But Ma Weiming fell on the bed, bounced with a plop, put his cheek against the quilt and slowly turned around, showing a surprised and disgusting smile. He stood up again, still adjusting his bathrobe, with a gangster-like attitude, and looked at Qin Yinan with a playful smile. Qin Yinan was furious, his eyes locked on Ma Weiming's shoulders, one hand in front of him to protect him, and the other hand violently struck Ma Weiming's waist and ribs. The fragrant wind overflowed, and the scattered hair was like a black stream of light. The white arms were knocked down by the force of the shock. She bent her knees and moved forward. Her beautiful legs under the cheongsam were tight, but the curves were still not destroyed. She felt when the force of the fist responded and the opponent's movements did not counterattack as expected. Qin Yinan's left leg quietly stretched out from under the front hem of the cheongsam, and the toes tightened the strength of the entire calf, pushing hard against the man's lower abdomen. I'll cut off my descendants. Ma Weiming's voice rang in her ears. Qin Yinan did not expect that her legs would be clamped by Ma Weiming, and the fist that hit his waist did not seem to have any impact on him. Qin Yinan realized that Ma Weiming's physical fitness suddenly became stronger, but he didn't learn any fighting skills. He just reacted faster and became stronger. It can be seen from his movements of hugging people. However, this physical strength was shocking. Qin Yinan did not give up. When he did not control his arms, Qin Yinan punched him repeatedly at close range, all of which landed on his chest. Ma Weiming was shaken by her force and had to loosen his legs. Qin Yinan regained his freedom, quickly ran to the bedside, took out a gun from the drawer, and looked at Ma Weiming coldly. Ma Weiming raised his hand, as if he had no idea that Qin Yinan had this thing in his drawer. Of course Qin Yinan had it. When Lu Chang'an went to make an appointment with Pu Shaogang, Qin Yinan followed and she had this thing in her bag. "Miss Qin, don't play with this kind of gun." After Ma Weiming finished speaking, his figure had disappeared on the spot. Qin Yinan's eyes couldn't keep up with Ma Weiming's speed. She only felt a finger inserted behind the trigger of the pistol, holding it tightly, and then held her own hand with one hand, and Ma Weiming's body was forced into her arms. The other hand tightly hugged Qin Yinan's slender and soft waist. Qin Yinan was inexplicably horrified. Such speed and reaction were much stronger than his own. This kind of genetic medicine actually had such terrifying transformation ability. No wonder Ma Weiming acted so boldly. The confidence was probably because he had some kind of bargaining chip. Qin Yinan gritted her teeth to calm down. She had to calm down, now she was in Ma Weiming's hands. If she didn't find a chance to escape, I'm afraid the consequences will be disastrous. His hand became harder and harder, his fingers pushed away her palm, and the gun in his hand fell to the ground. "Miss Qin, you are beyond my expectation. You also have strength and speed beyond ordinary people," Ma Weiming said with great appreciation. "You thought you were the only one." Qin Yinan turned his head suddenly, but his words stopped abruptly because Ma Weiming's face was so close at this moment. There was only a coin's length between her nose and his. His eyelashes could be clearly counted one by one. There was a shadow of her shock and surprise in his eyes, and his breath was very close at hand. His breath smelled like pigtails. Qin Yinan made roasted pigtails with some unique aromatic seasonings. "Before you came to my room, you went to the guest room to steal a pigtail and eat it," Qin Yinan sneered. "Why did you say that?" Ma Weiming said awkwardly. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an already knew why he was exposed. Why did he forget to brush his teeth after eating the pigtail? Lu Chang'an stopped being so stubborn and nodded. "Bring this face back to me." Qin Yinan didn't even care about the broken buckle on her chest. Under the orange light, her skin was as smooth as jade. Qin Yinan was trembling with anger and pointed at the door of the bedroom. She had no fondness for Ma Weiming's face at all, let alone familiarity with it. She just had a general impression. If the distance hadn't been so close just now, her eyes would have focused on his eye sockets and she could smell him again. After eating the spices from pigtails, she had no chance of thinking that he was Lu Chang'an pretending to be him. These days, she has seen many photos of Lu Chang'an, especially the partial photos that enlarged his eye sockets. The memory is very deep. Looking at his eyes at such a close distance made Qin Yinan very confused and was about to compare them. She had the impression that Ma Weiming had similar eye features to Lu Chang'an, but there was no way to compare. Why was she so impressed by Ma Weiming's eyes? At this moment, she could smell the spices from the pigtails he had eaten. The mantis stalks the cicada, with the aureole behind. Qin Yinan did not expect that he planned to test Lu Chang'an, and Lu Chang'an also had ideas, but was he doing this just now as a joke, or because he wanted to test some of her secrets? What Qin Yinan is now sure of is that Lu Chang'an can indeed change his face. Not only can he change his face into Yechinayu, he can also change his face into anyone else. So the question is he originally Yechinayu, or did he just change Yechinayu's face to make it easier for him to do something inconvenient? I need to explain this issue clearly to him tonight. After two people having such a quarrel, shouldn't they show off their cards? Qin Yinan followed Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an walked into his room and shut the door to Qin Yanan. You wait for me, it will take some time. Also, your button fell off. Please change your clothes. I am alone in the middle of the night, even though I am an elder. You should also be careful to avoid suspicion. You. Qin Yanan was like an angry pufferfish, her whole body bulging with anger. When she heard what he said, she subconsciously wanted to fight back, looked down, and quickly raised her hand to cover it. This is an increasingly open world, and women can expose their body parts at will. However, for many girls who are very concerned about their shame and reserve, the current situation is still very shy. Qin Yanan turned around, simply went back to the room, changed into autumn pajamas, and walked out. Arriving in the living room, Qin Yanan finally saw that familiar face. The familiar Lu Chang'an walked out of his room and put on the pajamas she had prepared for him. In the middle of the night, two people were sitting in the living room, facing each other. Lu Chang'an was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, while Qin Yanan was sitting upright and staring at him expressionlessly. Ahem. Showdown, Lu Chang'an coughed. The chapter names are in the wrong order, but the content order is correct and has been corrected. Today was supposed to be 6 in 1, which was beyond Xiaohua's expectation. I originally thought it would be 4 in 1 at most. 2 2-in-1s will be updated today, and a 3-in-1 will be updated tomorrow to make up for it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 266. The mountain breeze caressed the branches and leaves of the trees surrounding the outer wall, making a whistling sound. The windows were open, and the natural wind mixed with the cool air in the room, making it feel very comfortable on the skin. You made a lot of preparations tonight. Of course, Lu Chang'an noticed all the details in Qin Yanan's room, including the gentle sound of rain, old women's toys and personal items, etc. Each other, Qin Yanan said expressionlessly that he admired Lu Chang'an more. After all, his face changing was more magical than the face changing in Sichuan opera. After saying that, the two people looked at each other, and Lu Chang'an laughed. Qin Yanan turned her head. She was still a little annoyed. He was really a genius in acting. He actually pretended to be Ma Weiming. If the pigtail and his eyes hadn't revealed the truth, she would have been fooled by him. If he hadn't discovered it, what would he have done next? Really threw her on the bed? I never meddle in other people's business. If you plot against me, I will do it. Lu Chang'an picked up a bunch of grapes on the table between the two of them and started to chew on them. The grapes exude a light rose aroma and are delicious. The juice flows in the mouth, crisp but not sweet enough. Then if I didn't recognize you just now, you would have tried to force me to sleep, Qin Yanan said angrily. She just used some small tricks. What Lu Chang'an did was too bad. He looked really good when he played a gangster just now, with that lustful look on his face. Not interested. Lu Chang'an shook his head indifferently. Not interested in. Without. Qin Yanan reached out and grabbed it, but there was nothing suitable for shame on hand. There was a fork for eating fruit. Lu Chang'an took the fork in his hand. Qin Yanan stared at Lu Chang'an with bulging eyes, and Lu Chang'an continued to eat grapes one by one. If he says that he is not that kind of person, he will stop when enough is enough, he will step back from the brink, that's fine, not interested. Doesn't this mean that as a woman, she has no allure for him? This is like if a woman is really facing rape, and the criminal suddenly stops, the woman is thankful to be saved, but then the criminal says, actually, you are overthinking, you are so ugly, how could I rape you? In fact, I was quick shots. Wouldn't such a person be killed? You want to test whether I am Yechinayu? Lu Chang'an put down the grapes and diverted Qin Yanan's attention when she began to pant again. Qin Yanan was stunned for a moment, and recovered from the unnecessary anger. She pressed her chest habitually, and then she remembered that she was wearing loose pajamas. There was no way that her pajamas would be ruined. She couldn't help but I took a look at Lu Chang'an's pajamas. They were the same color, white and gray with black stripes on top. The two of them were sitting in the Tiffany blue-based living room, chatting face to face. It looked a bit like a family living at home. The feeling makes people feel a little strange. As for what he said, Qin Yinan was not very excited. Yes, it was just a test, and he did not admit it directly. Lu Chang'an stood up. Qin Yinan's eyes followed his back. Lu Chang'an walked to the window. Autumn is coming. Qin Yinan stood up involuntarily, and his voice changed. Lu Chang'an pushed aside a few branches that poked his head, closed the window, then slowly turned around and walked into Qin Yinan's bedroom. Qin Yinan quickly followed her. Lu Chang'an had already walked into her bathroom and closed the bathroom door. Qin Yinan was standing outside the door, not caring that she had put the dirty clothes basket in the middle of the bathroom, which contained her underwear. I told you that some things, if those who have experienced them are still alive, they are just memories, not history. The changed voice came out through the door, and the low, whimpering like a flute was neatly sorted out, and the feeling of vicissitudes of life was plainly read out. Yes, I still can't understand. Qin Yinan still put her hands on her chest habitually, she was a little nervous. History, when most people, especially young people, who have just left school, think of it, their first impression may be a textbook with the word history written on it. History, these two words are very plain, because no matter how magnificent events are written in books, they are just a piece of text for people to read, feel, and imagine. It's like watching a movie. No matter how brilliant the director and actors are, or how empathetic they are, it's still just a spectatorship that has nothing to do with themselves. History needs to be remembered, because it can easily be tampered with, forgotten, and indifferent, but memories are different. Qin Yinan seemed to have some realization. Some people are still alive, those tragic experiences, those times of broken mountains and rivers, those scenes of people struggling to survive, those heartbreaks of babies raised with bayonets, those ditches and rivers turning blood red, those desperate struggles of death, for them, this is not the history of La Shize, it is their personal experience, and the nightmare that still haunts them, the hatred that will never be forgiven, the bloody wound that has never been healed. Do you understand? Qin Yinan held the bathroom door handle. She naturally had many feelings in her heart, but when he suddenly brought up this topic, was it because he was telling her that he had experienced this? You're probably thinking, am I explaining that I've been through this? Yes. Qin Yinan felt that the voice seemed to be transmitted into her body, her fingers trembled and she let go of the door handle. It's not that I suddenly sighed, nor did I forcefully change the topic. It's just that you guessed it right. I am Yechinayu, the person who shares the same memories with Yesijin and Qin Peng. Lu Chang'an opened the door and walked out with a gentle smile and a touch of nostalgia in his eyes. This nostalgia was like a thread on Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan's eyelashes trembled slightly. She knew that he was I miss her so much, but it's not because of her. His appearance also changed, and he was the same person Qin Yinan had seen twice. Yechinayu. That Yechinayu is not recorded in the history books and only exists in the memories of a few people. Yechinayu whose appearance is imprinted in the photo in his great-grandfather's study. Qin Yinan looked into his eyes and forgot that her breathing had stopped. Maybe it was because of her eyes. She felt that what was actually in front of her was Lu Chang'an, as if he was just spreading the buried memories and dusty pictures in front of her eyes, letting her the feeling is full of the mystery of time and space. You are really. Qin Yinan looked at Lu Chang'an, took a few steps back, closed his eyes and shook his head. Qin Yinan opened his eyes again, his eyes were hazy, and he shook his head slightly. There was no change at all. This was different from the sudden meeting before. Qin Yinan felt that he was the same person in the photo and in the memories of his elders. In time, disappear and appear again. She didn't even suspect that Lu Chang'an had just mastered the ability to change his face and turned into Yechaniu to fool her. Because all her original clues have been verified, it is impossible that some of the information Lu Chang'an revealed intentionally or unintentionally was just a foreshadowing to fool her today, right? Are you really immortal? No, immortal. Qin Yan'an pinched her knuckles hard and stared at his face, his hands, and the heels exposed outside his slippers. Is there any difference? Lu Chang'an asked, slightly confused. Of course there are some differences, right? Immortality is a state of staying young both physically and mentally. This is true immortality. It would be too boring to have an immortal appearance but a sluggish mentality. Lu Chang'an smiled and said, You can still treat me as your cousin, I don't mind. That's not what I meant, no. It won't work. Qin Yan'an was a little incoherent. I'd better call you uncle. Casual. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he sat on the footrest at the end of Qin Yan'an's bed. Qin Yan'an lowered her head, and the hair on both sides of her face hung down into two crescent moons. Under the cover of her hair, her eyes secretly looked at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked at the little cloth tiger, and Qin Yan'an couldn't help but feel a little hot. He must have found his pretentiousness funny, right? What was your original plan tonight? Lu Chang'an raised his head and asked. I planned to pretend to be my great-grandmother and trick you into revealing it so that I could have more conclusive evidence. Qin Yan'an moved her hair behind her back in embarrassment. I didn't expect you to admit it directly. I'm determined. Qin Yan'an laughed twice, a little embarrassed. Although he always felt that he was still the Lu Chang'an he was familiar with. His personality, his mood, and his style had not changed. But in the end, he had to realize clearly that he could not treat him as someone he could get rid of. A little cousin pretending to be a cousin. Thinking about it this way, I still feel a little disappointed. Who doesn't want a younger brother like Lu Chang'an? Now I can only call him uncle and old man. This title seems correct, right? Uncle, uncle, uncle. Then since it's me who's showing off my cards to you. Lu Chang'an came over, holding the cloth tiger in his hand, and placed it on Qin Yan'an's head. It's your turn to tell me your ulterior secrets. Where is the ulterior secret? Qin Yan'an raised his hand to grab the cloth tiger above his head. He didn't know why he put it on top of his head. He felt so stupid and wanted to take it off, but looked at it. With his serious expression, Qin Yan'an was a little afraid again. I originally planned to tell you after you admitted it. Say it. Lu Chang'an nodded. In that case, he would take the cloth tiger away. When Yesijin and Qin Pen were naughty or not well educated when they were children, Lu Chang'an made them stand holding something on their head as punishment. I'm very strong. Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment. It's very big. Qin Yan'an was slightly embarrassed. In fact, she felt that girls were too strong, and they were easily associated with descriptions such as being as strong as an ox, being as strong as a tiger, and being as powerful as a mountain, which was not very elegant. How big is it? When I started fighting with you just now, I tried my best. Oh, not bad. Qin Yan'an's cheeks turned red from holding back, and she wanted to compete with him again, but let it go. He had the right to be so disapproving. She thought that she was so powerful that she was unparalleled, but in the end, she just hit his chest with her little fist in front of him. That's all. Anything else? Recently, I cut my hand while cutting vegetables and found that there was no blood on my finger. I didn't think much about it until the second time I tried it. Even if it was cut with an extremely sharp knife, it would be useless. But I didn't use any force to cut myself, or force myself to have to cut myself. Sharp. Qin Yan'an's cheeks bulged up, a bit like a pufferfish that had just started to get angry. Sure enough, whether it was Yechanai or Lu Chang'an, they were the same person anyway, and they had the same virtue. And that's all. Qin Yan'an felt a little bit despised, but how could you compete with an immortal person? So Qin Yinan had no choice but to nod. You don't have any special information, about the coffin, about your analysis of your own situation, about yes Ijin, some secrets that you haven't told me yet. Lu Chang'an followed the instructions, holding the cloth tiger, begging for clever red threads, handkerchiefs and such were dangled in front of her face. One of them is about great-grandmother's privacy. It is impossible for Qin Yinan to tell his cousin, but now that he is great-grandmother's brother, Qin Yinan feels the need to tell him, because the betrayal, the faceless lover, when faced with such people, it is the elder brother who comes forward. She has someone she likes, who should be a very close lover, but it is not my great-grandfather. She wanted to see him again before she died, that was her obsession. I can feel it. Qin Yinan looked at Lu Chang'an and saw that he was silent. He looked silent, like a sculpture without emotion. No, sculptures can express emotions. He was just using all his strength to control his emotions and didn't want to show any trace of them. His shoulders moved and he raised his head, still smiling gently. But Qin Yinan felt something struggling in her heart, which made her feel a little heart-wrenching pain. She felt sour for no reason and found it difficult to breathe. Besides immortality, do you want to know what other abilities I have? Lu Chang'an gently stroked Qin Yinan's long hair, his eyes soft. I think Qin Yinan answered truthfully. His eyes made her heart palpitate. She knew that his eyes like this were not because of Qin Yinan, but because of Yes Ijin. You go and change into a Chong Sam. Lu Chang'an walked out of the bedroom. Qin Yinan stood in the bedroom with a complicated expression for a while, patted her cheek, then her body trembled, and she seemed to have returned to her original state. She breathed in and out, changed into underwear suitable for matching the Chong Sam, and then put it on again. She put on a Chong Sam, combed her hair into a bun like the one in her great-grandmother's photo, put on a similar makeup, and walked out of the bedroom on high heels. Qin Yinan was stunned for a moment when he saw him, and then showed that kind of gentle and warm smile. The jade-like man in the living room made Qin Yinan couldn't help but think that Yes Ijin was probably treated like his brother countless times by him. Look at it with fondness. Tonight, you are Yes Ijin. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he walked out of the room. He didn't change clothes or even put on shoes. He walked barefoot to the viewing platform of Lushan Mountain. Qin Yinan followed up in small steps. Cheongsam and high heels were not suitable for chasing. Qin Yinan came behind him and put her hands in front of her abdomen. She asked Yes Ijin tonight, what does this mean? Zhu Huntang asked me how I ended up on the roof of Building 1 of Bailong Center. Later I told her that I jumped up from Building 2. Lu Chang'an did not lie to Zhu Huntang about this matter. So high, so far. Qin Yinan looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. She didn't know how many times she had stood on the roof of Building 1 of Bailong Center. Of course she knew that Building 1 was 452 meters away, while Building 2 was only 315 meters. Not to mention the distance between the two buildings. At this height, even Spider-Man would have to rely on spider silk to jump up. My ability seems to be related to the civilization period, and it can also evolve. At the beginning of the last century, I didn't have the ability as strong as I do now. Lu Chang'an opened his arms after speaking, Jin'er, come here. This title, Qin Yinan was a little resistant, but it quickly dissipated. Qin Yinan walked to Lu Chang'an. Ah! Qin Yinan raised her hands to cover her mouth and let out a low cry. Her whole body became stiff because Lu Chang'an hugged her sideways. His arms were strong, but his body of more than 100 kilograms felt as light as a bird in his arms. Qin Yinan's heart was beating fast in the warm breath in his arms. Suddenly, Qin Yinan felt him jump. What is he doing? I jumped up, but why didn't I feel the landing? Qin Yinan couldn't help but open his eyes. The Milky Way above his head seemed to suddenly become closer, and the trees disappeared from the corner of his eye. He rises from the ground. He jumped into the air, a height that humans could never reach with their own physiological structure. This is the domain of birds and insects. You. Chinyanan didn't finish her sentence. She only felt his body falling, and she couldn't help shouting in fear, because she had already seen her height clearly. Lushan was dozens of meters below her feet, and now they were walking along the hillside. Incline jumped down. Lu Chang'an jumped to the computer room at the top of the cable car not far away. Chinyanan's heart was beating like a drum. It was definitely not the shyness and nervousness of being held in his arms at this time, but the effect of her pale face. Jinner, this is a cable car. Does it look like the hanging baskets in some places in the past? Did she really think of herself as Yesijin? Chinyanan was a little dizzy. Lu Chang'an jumped up again, and Chinyanan had no time to care that he thought he was Yesijin. She just gritted her teeth and got used to the incredible superhuman thing he did. He jumped down the mountain from the iron towers on the cable car. Chinyanan's heart jumped and stopped as he jumped up and down, like a parabola that rose and fell. Where are you going? When he came to the foot of the mountain, Chinyanan was frightened and found that he had no intention of letting go of him. Lu Chang'an didn't say anything. He took advantage of the fact that there was no car on the road and ran past. Such a speed, fortunately, at 4 or 5 in the morning, when there are fewest pedestrians and cars on the street, the dark night still provides a protective color. It's on the river. Chinyanan was horrified to find Lu Chang'an flying down the river with her in his arms. What kind of speed is this? Lu Chang'an carried Chinyanan and ran to the head of Juzhu Island. Only then did he let Chinyanan go. He looked sideways at the statue of the great man. Jinner, I remember you told me that when the revolutionary cause is successful, you will come here with us and recite the song Kainyuan Chun loudly. Lu Chang'an looked back at Chinyanan. Chinyanan opened her mouth, but had no words. She just responded to his gaze silently with her eyes. In the cold autumn of independence, we go north to the Xiangjiang River, towards the head of Orange Island. See the mountains all red, the forests all dyed, the rivers full of green, and hundreds of boats competing in the current. Eagles strike in the sky, fish fly in the shallows, and all kinds of frost compete for freedom in the sky. With a melancholy outline, I asked the vast land, who is responsible for the ups and downs. I brought 100 couples with me to travel and recall the glorious past. I am a young classmate who is in my prime. The scholar was angry and scolded Fang Qiu. Pointing out the country and inspiring words, the excrement of thousands of households. Have you ever remembered that when you hit the water in the middle of the current, the waves stopped the flying boat? Lu Chang'an listened to the female voice reciting in his ears. He turned around and looked at Chinyanan with a joy that Chinyanan had never seen before. He felt that such joy was a little naive and a little pitiful. Jinner, this is the new world we created. Lu Chang'an took Chinyanan's hand and hugged her sideways. Chinyanan no longer had any fear or horror, but just looked at him silently. Lu Chang'an carried her across the river, jumped onto the Du Fujiang Pavilion, tiptoed on the archway of Posa Street, flew across the night sky like a black hawk, and jumped up to Building 2 of Bailong Center. He took a deep breath and accelerated from the edge of the roof. Chinyanan felt the strong wind on the pavement, and a sudden feeling of stagnant time and space made her turn her head, and saw herself and Lu Chang'an's figures in the air more than 300 meters high. Soaring into the sky. Chinyanan's heart jumped to her throat, but she still clenched her teeth tightly and did not let herself scream. The somewhat blurry street lights, the clear streets, and the rising and falling tall buildings were all under her feet. Lu Chang'an put Chinyanan down, bent down, pressed his knees with both hands, and panted frequently. Even if he made such a jump at the last moment, he was almost at the end of his strength. Chinyanan was about to ask him if it was okay, but he straightened his body again and pulled Chinyanan to the edge of Building 1 of Bailong Center. That's where he jumped for the first time. Jinner, Look at this prosperous world. He didn't look back, Qin Yan'an just stood beside him, looking at his profile silently. When we came to Shanghai, the city was very prosperous. You said that we must create such a prosperous city in the future. Look, the prosperity we created is right in front of you. Everything you yearn for, everything you expect, everything you dare not even think about, has been created. You said that from now on, you want me to ride with you in a car made in your country, so I went to work as a car worker in a factory. You said that our country will run with trains made in our country, so I worked as a railroad worker. You said that we should have our own top universities to ensure the country's subsequent development, so I became a professor. I participated in many of the things you said you wanted to achieve, alone. Look at the Ferris wheel over there. I want to sit with you. You will definitely be very happy. Look at the bridge there. We couldn't even think about it at that time. Under the rushing river, can you believe there is a bridge there? Are the subways and buses shuttling? Jinner, I want to live in this world with you. Qin Yan'an's tears flowed like springs. She didn't know why she wanted to cry so much. She hugged the man next to her tightly. Brother. I'm here. Lu Chang'an lowered his head and gently stroked her long hair, his eyes falling on the city in front of him. Sometimes dreams have come true, but they have nothing to do with you. Jinner, brother, I really miss you sometimes. Monthly pass. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 267. The waning moon hangs on the side of Lushan Mountain, as if standing there you can reach out and hug the bright moon. From Hexi to Hedong, the city below is divided by long rivers, and scattered lights mark the prosperity of the city that cannot be concealed by the night. Lu Chang'an and Qin Yan'an stood on the edge of the top of Bailong Center. Behind them were a helicopter platform, a sky garden, and a swimming pool. The reality is even more incredible than the dreams of 100 years ago. Qin Yan'an's tears were wiped dry by her pajamas on his shoulders, and Lu Chang'an let go of her shoulders. Although he said that she was Yesijin tonight, it was up to her to decide who she was. Lu Chang'an will not force her to accept that she is actually Yesijin, because Qin Yan'an has no memory of Yesijin at all, and no memory of those Jiangnan girls growing up in the arms of their brothers in the Ye family house. She didn't know that those pictures had the moving charm of old photos. She didn't know that the patter of rain in the Ye family's courtyard and the sound of the girl laughing with lotus leaves on her head. She didn't know that the young man wearing a long gown holding a ruler in his hand had a serious face. She also didn't know who held whose hand in those years from Jiangnan to the old capital, from the girl in the rain alley of Jinling College to the sonorous roses on the battlefield. No matter who you think you are, if you call me brother, I will respond and be very happy. Lu Chang'an looked into the distance and blinked slowly. By now, you should also understand that Qin Pengyu were sent to me because he knew that I would take good care of you. I feel guilty in my heart. Qin Yan'an let go of his back. She knew that this man was by no means the kind of weak man who would cry and faint in her arms and need comfort. It was just that kind of empathy that finally made her understand why she saw him that time. The back view reminds me of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony. Real loneliness is hard to describe to others. It is the calmness of reshaping the heart after accumulating too many emotions, like the calm sea surface, hiding the undercurrent of wind and thunder. Once she could truly feel it, her onlooker's perspective would also be torn open. Before the war was completely victorious, I went to Japan. I shouldn't have gone. If I had been here, no if. Lu Chang'an turned his back to Qin Yan'an and stretched out his palm. It's a blessing in misfortune. Is this action of his also a habit? Qin Yan'an was not pretentious or shy. She naturally put her hand in his palm and felt him holding it. There is no ambiguity between the opposite sex, only a light, natural warmth, as if it should be like this, as if it has been put back to its original position. Chinyanan felt that Yesijin still had an influence on her, but she no longer resisted. That's it, it's okay. Chinyanan is also curious about many things, but she feels that now is not the time to ask questions. He should answer her questions well in the future, right? He insists on the difference between history and memory, probably because of Yesijin. He does not want Yesijin to be just a name in history. He refuses to let Yesijin really become history. He feels that as long as his memories are still there, Yesijin seems to be just a name in history. A person who has not been seen for a while, instead of just stripping off the traces of the living person and describing it in ink characters. But he can't just look through his memories. Once he does, there will be scars that will make him cry. I said, I can call you whatever you want, but if you are willing to call me brother in the future, I can accept it. As for the others, we can discuss it ourselves. Okay. Chinyanan was a little shy at this time and shouted immediately without excitement or encouragement. Lu Chang'an nodded gently. The darkness has not completely faded yet, and there is already a faint fish belly white in the east. It's almost dawn, and a little bit of light will come over and pass through the sycamore tree in front of Lu Chang'an's house, then climb to the top of the mountain and fall into the empty bedrooms and guest rooms. Of course, he was not going back to catch up on his sleep at this time. Lu Chang'an didn't realize how long he and Chinyanan had been standing here. Chinyanan remembered that at dawn, servants would come to the roof to tidy up the garden and maintain the swimming pool, and they would see herself and Lu Chang'an then. Last night, that Zhu Huntang knew my plan, Chinyanan said vaguely. Lu Chang'an let go of Chinyanan's hand, looked away from the portrait of the great man on Orange Island, and shook his head gently. Zhu Huntang is too annoying. Chinyanan had no choice but to nod. The people I like to hang out with either have a state of mind and ambition that transcends ordinary people, or they are very interesting. I will make friends with such people. Lu Chang'an pointed downstairs. Zhu Huntang is a female monkey. Although his heart was still full of low and sad emotions, Chinyanan couldn't help laughing when he heard Lu Chang'an's comments about Zhu Huntang. Lu Chang'an didn't say much. As for how Chinyanan tried to deal with Zhu Huntang, she should be able to solve it herself. Let's go. Lu Chang'an opened his arms. Chinyanan consciously approached the position in his arms, and then saw Lu Chang'an looking at her in surprise. What are you doing? Chinyanan took a deep breath slightly nervously. I was quite scared last night, but I got used to it later. It's a bit like bungee jumping, but too intense. Do you want me to jump off the roof of the building this morning and jump back to the top of Lushan Mountain to surprise the people of Junsha who got up early? Lu Chang'an opened and raised his arms. I am just doing this to stretch my muscles. I'm not trying to hug you. Oh, that's right. Chinyanan concealed her embarrassment expressionlessly. Lu Chang'an moved his hands, feet, and muscles, and then pointed downstairs. Will Zhu Huntang find out? Definitely. She has installed cameras everywhere in this building recently. Chinyanan looked around and thought about the distribution of surveillance images when Zhu Huntang called for surveillance last time. There are no cameras from the angle we came up, but when she reaches the tarmac, she will be spotted by the cameras. But it doesn't matter. As long as she is not assassinated or kidnapped, other people will not be able to see the surveillance videos from these cameras. Let's go. Chinyanan led Lu Chang'an down from the elevator on the roof, but found that the elevator was locked at this time. Chinyanan tried the password, and it was different from the elevator going upstairs. Let me call Zhu Huntang. Chinyanan looked at Lu Chang'an helplessly. Lu Chang'an nodded indifferently. It had nothing to do with Zhu Huntang discovering that he and Chinyanan were on the roof of the building. Anyway, he just ignored Zhu Huntang. It was not his business to prevaricate Zhu Huntang. How to explain the two people appearing here? Is there such an animal as a fairy monkey in the history of biology? Lu Chang'an thought carefully. I am grateful to my parents for their greatness that condensed my flesh and blood, and my parents' wisdom for shaping my soul. Most of all, I am grateful to my parents for making me a rich second generation. A different rich second generation, but I am really a rich second generation. The latest masterpiece I'm Really a Rich Second Generation by the veteran urban author Zhongkai Yueming is released. Now on the shelves. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 268. Qin Yan'an called Zhu Huntang's mobile phone but didn't answer, so he had to call the landline in her room. It took a while before I heard Zhu Huntang's feeble voice, Yao Xiao Yaoshiu. It's me, help me drive the elevator down to the top of the building. Sing Jing Bai. Isn't there a call? Just call the servant. Zhu Huntang slowly woke up and stopped speaking the soft Hokkien dialect. Aren't you curious how I appeared on the roof so early in the morning when the elevator was closed? The emergency exit was also locked. Qin Yan'an glanced at Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang was more curious than curious, so he just didn't say anything. What are you curious about? Helicopters. This is a very common thing in Zhu Huntang's life. He blurted it out before he realized that Qin Yan'an and Lu Chang'an were together last night. Why are they on the roof of the building now? Wait for me. Zhu Huntang quickly pulled on a nightgown and put it on, then ran to the roof. As expected, Zhu Huntang met Lu Chang'an on the roof of the building. Morning. Lu Chang'an greeted Zhu Huntang. Morning. Zhu Huntang jumped around Lu Chang'an excitedly, because she felt that Lu Chang'an's appearance on the roof today must be the same as the way he got here when she first met Lu Chang'an, but she didn't know. Stop jumping. Qin Yan'an quickly grabbed Zhu Huntang, because Zhu Huntang was so excited that she only put on a nightgown and came up, and she usually slept in only a pair of small underwear. Thank you for opening the door. Let's have breakfast together when you have time. Lu Chang'an is a very particular person. He was very grateful to Zhu Huntang for smiling, and then said, goodbye. So Lu Chang'an walked into the elevator. Zhu Huntang quickly followed and pulled Qin Yan'an into the elevator. Lu Chang'an took the elevator down, then took the elevator downstairs. Of course, Zhu Huntang couldn't catch up, but she was not afraid that Lu Chang'an would run away, and she just continued to look at Qin Yan'an excitedly. Looking at Zhu Huntang's expression, Qin Yan'an was a little embarrassed. Tell her, but Lu Chang'an doesn't allow it, so don't tell her. It turned out to be a promise. I ate fried pear chicken last night, and now I'm a little hungry again, Qin Yan'an said, touching his belly. Zhu Huntang quickly handed the menu to Qin Yan'an and asked her to order breakfast, and then went to get chocolate and 2 boxes of milk. Qin Yan'an clicked on the menu with her fingers, looked at the menu handwritten by the chef, clicked in and looked at the ingredients, and glanced over to see Zhu Huntang with a flattering smile on his face, squatting in front of her and looking up at her. Which made Qin Yan'an even more unable to bear not telling her. Zhu Huntang cut the chocolate and forked a piece to feed Qin Yan'an milk or other drinks. No need. Qin Yan'an stopped Zhu Huntang from continuing to be attentive. Zhu Huntang sat at Qin Yan'an's feet, sat down obediently, and looked up at Qin Yan'an seriously. Like a kid who just graduated from kindergarten. Lu Chang'an said, I'm not allowed to tell you, Qin Yan'an said embarrassedly. There is no humanity in people of the opposite sex. Zhu Huntang immediately became disobedient and jumped up, angrily holding chocolate and milk in his arms. Why are you so angry? Qin Yan'an rolled his eyes at her. Why do you have to obey him? Lu Chang'an is an old monkey. Once I went to the zoo to see monkeys, and there was a monkey standing in the sunset with a naked red butt. It thought he was old and handsome. Lu Chang'an is that one. Monkey. Zhu Huntang ate chocolate angrily and drank milk angrily. What a coincidence. Qin Yan'an burst into laughter. He also said last night that you were a female monkey. You two are really a match made in heaven. Saying this, Qin Yan'an found that such teasing made her feel a little uncomfortable. Is there a female monkey as beautiful and lovely as me? I blinded him. Zhu Huntang is still very confident in this regard and insists that she is a fairy and will not waver for 100 years. I don't have to tell you his secret, but I can tell you mine, Qin Yinan said helplessly. What's your secret? Zhu Huntang glanced at Qin Yinan, not very interested. Qin Yinan picked up the small table knife Zhu Huntang used to cut chocolate. Are you going to show me the magic trick of bending a knife? Zhu Huntang even sneered. She was no longer a little girl under the age of 16 who screamed at any magic trick. Qin Yinan put the knife on her wrist and looked at Zhu Huntang seriously. Zhu Huntang was stunned, and couldn't help but hold down Qin Yinan's hand holding the knife. Although she didn't think that Qin Yinan was going to commit suicide by cutting her wrists yet, it was impossible. Qin Yinan was alive and well, so why cut her wrists? It was not like her own experience. After so much, a girl's heart has already been scarred. My skin is very difficult to damage and won't bleed even if cut with a knife. Is there something wrong with your brain? Zhu Huntang touched Qin Yinan's forehead. You don't have a fever either. If you don't want to tell me, don't tell me. I don't blame you. It must be Lu Chang'an who threatens you. You don't have to deal with me like this, and you won't bleed even if you get cut with a knife. You might as well tell me that you're menopausal, and I'll still believe you. I won't stop you even if you don't, Qin Yinan said angrily. I'm younger than you, Zhu Huntang was confident. Qin Yinan was too lazy to argue with her. Facts spoke louder than words. When Zhu Huntang let go of her hand, Qin Yinan took the knife and slashed her wrist hard. Except for the faint marks, there is no broken skin or bloodshot. Zhu Huntang was stunned and couldn't help being startled. He held Qin Yinan's wrist tightly and touched it up and down to examine it carefully. This table knife does not have a sharp edge, but it has fine serrations on it. It is very useful for cutting chocolate and meat. Especially with such a stroke, even if it is covered with a layer of pig, the skin can be cut. Zhu Huntang looked at the knife again and looked at Qin Yinan in surprise. This is the magic Lu Chang'an taught you, right? It turns out we didn't reach an agreement to find Lu Chang'an's secret. I told him that it wasn't magic. Qin Yinan didn't say much about Lu Chang'an and continued to stretch out his hand. Come and try it. Zhu Huntang looked at Qin Yinan, then at the knife, hesitated for a moment, and was eager to try but nervous with the knife. Then you asked me to try it? Qin Yinan nodded. Zhu Huntang put the knife on Qin Yinan's wrist, knocked it, looked at Qin Yinan's expression, and then cut it with one side of the blade, then quickly threw away the knife. Ah, is there any bleeding? Ah, is there any bleeding? If you do that, it won't matter even if you cut yourself, Qin Yinan said helplessly. Zhu Huntang picked up the table knife and made a gesture on his wrist. Then he felt that such an action was stupid, as if he was committing suicide. Come again. Zhu Huntang exerted a little more force this time. Qin Yinan just looked at her. After meeting their eyes, Zhu Huntang slowly exerted more force for a while. Her mouth grew longer and wider, and finally she pulled hard with one stroke. There was a faint white mark on Qin Yinan's wrist. Zhu Huntang quickly threw away the knife, took a few steps back with his palm on the ground, turned over and got up, pointed at Qin Yinan. You are a monster. You are the monster, Qin Yinan said angrily. The knife couldn't be used, so she picked up the chocolate and bit it. You won't eat me, right? We are good sisters. Zhu Huntang tentatively came over again. Qin Yinan ignored her and actually called her a monster and looked very scared. It was so sad. Zhu Huntang laughed, sat next to Qin Yinan, and touched her body. I just have this kind of superpower, it's not like I turned into something else. Qin Yinan opened Zhu Huntang's paws. What other scales, tail, wings, etc. do you want to find on me? Then will you still come to be my aunt? It is a normal association to think of this without bleeding, and Zhu Huntang still cares about this issue. Come, if you don't come, will you still be a woman? Hey, I've always wanted to have the superpowers of my aunt. What kind of superpower is this? One of my mother's laboratories is researching biotechnology in this area, and it seems to be close to success. However, considering the pressure of public opinion and ethics, it has not been launched on the market. Who would use this kind of technology? Unless they naturally lose it when they get older. Isn't it strange that they lose it at such a young age? Zhu Huntang touched Qin Yinan's wrist. You are even weirder, okay. This is my superpower, don't let it out. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. Qin Yinan was a little skeptical, but it didn't matter, others won't believe it if they know it. But what's going on with you? Zhu Huntang took the chocolate and took a bite. I don't know either. Qin Yinan shrugged indifferently. When I have lived enough, I will donate myself to the country for research. You are so enlightened. Zhu Huntang took Qin Yinan's arm. No, maybe you will be immortal like Lu Chang'an. When we are all dead, you and Lu Chang'an can hide their names or change places to live freely. What nonsense are you talking about? Qin Yinan's cheeks turned red. Xiao Nizai is so excited. Zhu Huntang was shocked and angry. You really want to wait for me to die before you can have sex with Lu Chang'an? You're crazy. Qin Yinan hit Zhu Huntang. Who would have sex with him? He has a girlfriend, and what? Zhu Huntang immediately pricked up his ears. It's nothing. Qin Yinan shook his head. I have told you my secrets. You can ask him about Lu Chang'an's secrets yourself. You don't have to tell me his secret, but I can understand that you have confirmed something, Zhu Huntang said wittily. Qin Yinan said nothing and drank milk. Zhu Huntang didn't want her to answer him. He pulled up his skirt and rolled it up to wrap his hands, and walked around the room thinking about countermeasures. At the same time, he allowed himself to accept the fact that his best friend had a superhuman physique. Lu Chang'an had already returned home and finished breakfast. He bought radish vegetables on the road. Thinking about his recent life, which is relatively luxurious and eating meat every meal, he still wanted to return to the green and light quality of life, so he opened a bowl of radish vegetables with chicken soup and ate a small bowl of rice. For breakfast. According to the instructions received, Lu Chang'an found a group of bats in the same room, put them in a sack, and sent them to the carriage. After washing his hands, Lu Chang'an continued to check for leaks and repair the oil paper umbrella. Tomorrow is the Chinese Valentine's Day. Although the little girl in Nuan did not deliberately hint anything, the more reserved she was during the period of passionate love, the more prepared she was. Yes, Lu Chang'an was also looking forward to what gift she would give him. This article will not be written in the form of a manual. This article is more suitable for genuine reading. If you have any questions or doubts, please refer to this chapter to gain better reading comprehension. This book was first published on the Chinese website of Qidian.com. Asking for monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 269. The fine clouds make tricks, the flying stars spread hatred, and the silver and white men show their secrets. Once the golden wind and jade do meet, they will win over countless others in the world. Tenderness is like water, good times are like dreams, and I can't bear to look at the Magpie Bridge on the way home. If our love lasts for a long time, how can we stay together day and night? Chinese Valentine's Day is coming, and there needs to be a more or less festive atmosphere. After all, in Lu Chang'an's mind, this is a big festival. Lu Chang'an brought a large bowl of water and put it in the sun to dry. At noon, a thin layer of dust condensed into a film covering the water. Lu Chang'an placed a needle on the film to observe the reflection in the water. At the bottom of the white porcelain bowl, there are the transformed shadows of clouds, flowers, birds, and animals. In the small square inch, under the interweaving of light and shadow, there is the atmosphere of the heaven and the earth. The shadow of a needle runs across it, and the atmosphere is upright. It takes a moment to break the film and fall into it. After reaching the bottom of the water, Lu Chang'an nodded with satisfaction. This is a divination technique used on the Chinese Valentine's Day. It can predict, just for fun. Lu Chang'an was about to catch a spider and put it in a box to predict the fortune by observing the web it would form the next day, when he saw Bai Hui walking over. A rare visitor, Lu Chang'an gave up catching the spider and looked at Bai Hui in surprise. I was passing by, Bai Hui said casually, pulling on the shoulder strap that was pressed against his chest. Oh, see you then. The purpose of passing by is to stop by and take a look, not to leave right away. Bai Hui was so angry that he told the truth. Then you see, Lu Chang'an went to hammer bricks. He was so busy making umbrellas during this period that he forgot to hammer bricks. Bai Hui walked up to Lu Chang'an, her eyes flickering between brick and Lu Chang'an. Why was this man so boring? Isn't chatting with a beautiful girl more attractive than hammering bricks? Aren't you going to ask me what I came to see? What are you here to see? Lu Chang'an was very cooperative in this situation. I asked my cousin if you were at home. She took a look through the telescope and said that you were staring at a bowl of water at home. I thought you were extremely boring, Bai Hui said with some pride, feeling as if she had the ability to be clairvoyant. Same. So you came. Bai Hui nodded with a ha-ha sound. Then you came to me specifically, not just passing by. Lu Chang'an corrected her word choice. Bai Hui stepped back a little with broken steps. I was just passing by. Up to you. Let me ask you, did you watch the dance I sent you? Bai Hui wanted to let Lu Chang'an know that she is also very popular now. Among the students who graduated from the attached high school, not only in Nuan has a lot of popularity on the internet. Show it to me. Lu Chang'an was helpless. Isn't it the dance called single dog jumping on Chinese Valentine's Day? Bai Hui happily took out her cell phone, placed it on the brick in front of Lu Chang'an, and squatted next to Lu Chang'an to watch it with him. It turns out that the video is not called Single Dogs Jumping on Chinese Valentine's Day, but the name of the video is Learning to Meow as a Cat. The dance was recorded in Bailong Center Mall. Bai Hui wore a pair of black high-heeled shoes with thin straps. The angle made her look much taller than in reality. Her legs were even more exaggeratedly slender. She wore a black and white plaid short skirt. Wearing an off-shoulder white embroidered tiger head t-shirt, her customary twin tails, and long hair shawl, the girl is full of energy and liveliness. Her movements are gentle and cute, like the incarnation of a cat. How's it going? Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an's expression as if he was attracted and a little proud. Why meow like a cat? Lu Chang'an asked, a little confused. That's the name of this dance song. Why not imitate the crow of a rooster? Ah. Let's learn how to crow like a rooster. And together. It's quite sunny, and it reminds me of a rooster rising in the morning. Bai Hui put her phone away. Lu Chang'an was crazy. Look at animals like cats. Besides pooping, what else do cats do nowadays? It's more meaningful to imitate chickens, ducks, and pigs than to imitate cats. Bai Hui allowed herself to explain to Lu Chang'an patiently, the key is cuteness. Meow meow meow, how cute is it? Bai Hui did a dance imitation of a cat. It's very cute when a child does this, but when you are so old, it's very artificial. Girls of this age should not try to pretend to be cute. It's so annoying to look at. Lu Chang'an commented objectively. This is how he sees it. Bai Hui feels that Lu Chang'an's taste is really, forget it. After all, he doesn't understand the cutest thing about a beautiful girl like her, and don't expect a current guy like him to be like the otakus on video websites, pretending to be casual when he sees a beautiful girl. Kawaii shouted, oh no, it's my heartbeat. When Bai Hui met Lu Chang'an, she often felt like having a myocardial infarction. Actually, I just wanted to ask you. Bai Hui circled around Lu Chang'an's brick. What plans do you and Nuan have for the Chinese Valentine's Day tomorrow? Lu Chang'an gave her a strange look. What does it have to do with you? I'm just asking, for reference. Are you ready to go on a date? Lu Chang'an pointed at Bai Hui's cell phone unexpectedly. Oh, no, that dance is not called single dog jumping on Chinese Valentine's Day. I misunderstood. Looking at Lu Chang'an's expression, Bai Hui raised her head reservedly and nodded, of course. We have no plans or arrangements. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Bai Hui was surprised. It's unnatural for two people to be together, it's awkward to get along, you can even say you don't know why, so you need planning and arrangements to solve the awkward feeling of getting along together. For real lovers, just meet each other, Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. Bai Hui pursed her lips. This was not the answer she wanted to know at all, even though what he said made sense. She originally planned that if she found out, she would have nothing to do tomorrow, so she would quietly see how Lu Chang'an and An Nuan were dating. It doesn't mean anything else, it's just leisure. At this time, Zhou Dongdong, who saw an unknown sister talking to brother Chang'an, went downstairs. He ran behind Lu Chang'an and looked at her for a while. Bai Hui then tried to climb onto Lu Chang'an's back, but failed. Kid, what's your name? Bai Hui's Hung was a little embarrassed. He didn't know how to continue chatting with Lu Chang'an. He just happened to come to relieve the situation. It seemed that the kid and Lu Chang'an had a good relationship. My name is. Her name is Zhou Dongdong, she is a stupid child. He is a clever and brave child, Zhou Dongdong said loudly. Bai Hui chuckled, looking at Zhou Dongdong's round cheeks that were so cute, and remembering Lu Chang'an just now saying that only children are suitable for pretending to be cute. Zhou Dongdong, don't play with bricks, you'll get your hands dirty. Seeing Zhou Dongdong going to play with bricks, Bai Hui said quickly, showing that adults have the awareness to teach children when they see them. If your hands don't get dirty, then why do you have to wash your hands every day? Zhou Dongdong said nonchalantly. Bai Hui was stunned for a moment. Zhou Dongdong's words left her speechless. Lu Chang'an laughed twice and gave Zhou Dongdong a small hammer. Zhou Dongdong, like other children of this age, likes to imitate what adults do. For example, when Lu Chang'an buries a pullet, she buries a plastic chick, and Lu Chang'an makes a fire. She threw the little stool into the fire. Sister, let me teach you how to dance. Bai Hui had an idea and thought of an opportunity to show off her talents and let Lu Chang'an see her affinity. Girls who can conquer children are more attractive, so kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers, it's so easy to find a boyfriend. Zhou Dongdong hit the bricks hard with a small hammer, and she remembered her airplane dance that won the Most Humorous Talent Award. Bai Hui held Zhou Dongdong's hand and stood under the sycamore tree. Come on, my sister will dance for you first. Bai Hui sang and danced, performing for Zhou Dongdong once. She secretly noticed that Lu Chang'an was concentrating on smashing bricks, and was too lazy to pay attention to such a lumpy boy. How's it going? Does it look good? My sister will teach you. I've learned it, Zhou Dongdong said loudly. Ah! Meow 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 meow, meow meow meow. Zhou Dongdong imitated the meow of a cat, then turned his hands and ran away like a small plane. This sister did not give Zhou Dongdong delicious food like other sisters. Would only expose Zhou Dongdong's painful memories, so Zhou Dongdong didn't want to play with her at all and ran to find his mother. She. Bai Hui pointed at Zhou Dongdong's back. Her good intentions and enthusiasm were aggrieved by Zhou Dongdong's reaction. Bai Hui looked back at Lu Chang'an. You're so free, why don't you help me smash some bricks? Lu Chang'an picked up the small hammer Zhou Dongdong dropped and stretched it out. Bai Hui looked at her cute lace white socks, white hands, and Hermes bag, then hesitantly took the hammer, and by accident, sat down next to Lu Chang'an and started smashing bricks. Bai Hui didn't expect that he and Lu Chang'an would smash bricks all afternoon. By the time the work was over, his arms were already sore, but seeing a pile of broken gravel gave him a sense of accomplishment. Labor makes people happy, labor makes people fulfilled, and labor makes people healthy. Lu Chang'an felt a little impressed by Bai Hui's performance and nodded with satisfaction. At least she was much better than a certain fairy. If it were that fairy, he would just pick up his cell phone and call someone to smash it, and act like he was awesome. Does this need to be said? Bai Hui rubbed her wrist, feeling a little proud. For the sake of helping me work, I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Lu Chang'an pointed to the faucet. Wash your hands first. Bai Hui came over to wash her hands. There was only one faucet. When she reached over, Lu Chang'an touched the palm of her hand. Bai Hui couldn't help but shrink. Her cheeks were slightly warm, and her heart skipped a beat. She was too shy, probably because she was a girl who doesn't know how to get along with boys. Lu Chang'an did not cook for Bai Hui at home. He and Bai Hui went to Bailong Center together. On the way there, he called the All-Stars. This person had eaten rice noodles at the breakfast stall and gave Zhou Shuling a business card. Expressed that Bailong's food center very much welcomes Zhou Shuling's rice noodle shop. When Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui arrived at the food center, All-Stars were already waiting. They brought a plan to show Lu Chang'an. The decoration here was all uniform and it was impossible for each merchant to let themselves go. However, some stores were also mentioned in the plan. The elements can be designed and formulated by the merchants themselves. The rest of the shops are relatively remote, but Lu Chang'an is not going to take the route of breakfast stalls. What's more, the flow of people in Bailong Food Center is large enough, so he doesn't care if it's a bit off. Are you going to be the boss? Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an in surprise. We happen to be short of capital. Do you want to buy some shares? Lu Chang'an said with a smile. No, Bai Hui shook his head repeatedly. I want to buy a house. Buying a house is the most profitable, but how much do you need? I can lend it to you. That's no need. Lu Chang'an refused. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an's expression and said, I don't want to buy shares. Are you a little unhappy? Or do you think I don't know a good person's heart? Nothing. You have. No. You must have. Bai Hui couldn't help pouting and stamping her feet. Lu Chang'an glanced at Bai Hui strangely. I'll order. Bai Hui coughed awkwardly, holding up the menu to cover his red face. He used to secretly pay attention to Lu Chang'an and Annan, but he accidentally imitated An Nuan's coquettishness. I've had a bit of a fever in the past few days, and I always get a cold-like headache when I wake up in the morning. Hey, please give me a monthly pass. I'll have an outbreak when I feel better. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 270. Bai Fen ordered a steak set meal, which was not expensive. After all, as a food center, the wide variety of food choices is the biggest selling point. Instead of taking the high-end boutique route, it is more suitable for the daily consumption of middle-income citizens. Lu Chang'an ordered lobster crispy noodles. This dish was ordered next to the steak shop, but the seats in the food center were shared. Why do you eat such strange things? When the food was served, Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an's food and wrinkled his nose, finding it difficult to accept it. Lu Chang'an's lobster rice noodles are made of several crayfish lying on the edge of the bowl, with a large rice cake on their backs. The noodles are soaked in the soup under the rice. The rice is used to soak the soup and eat it, giving it a spicy taste. This is definitely not something that people from places that don't like spicy food can try. People even suffer losses. What else can't be eaten? Lu Chang'an took the rice cake and dipped it in the red soup and ate it. It tasted pretty good. Bai Hui wanted to ask him if he would eat anything, but she was a little afraid that he would stare at her, not to mention that she was also eating, so she might as well forget it. Next time I'll treat you to the best Western restaurant in Juncha for French food. Bai Hui cut the steak with a plastic knife. Upstairs, Lu Chang'an pointed to the top of his head. Bai Hui nodded vigorously. Her selfie in the hotel upstairs has successfully aroused the envy, jealousy, and hatred of many girls. For many girls who pursue quality of life, they can understand that being in a hotel is not necessarily about having sex with men. High-end hotels, the service and environment are very capable of meeting the needs of girls in all aspects, including vanity, the noble experience of being valued, the life temperament of the wealthy class, and so on. Have you been there? Bai Hui was a little surprised that Lu Chang'an actually knew that this guy was willing to spend so much money to treat An Nuan to a luxurious stay just to please An Nuan. He treated An Nuan to French food and treated him to it himself. This was really a pleasant thing for the body and mind. Bai Hui took a sip of water and ate a bite of fried shredded radish, a piece of cabbage, and a small potato. Lu Chang'an nodded and said nothing more. Is it delicious? Bai Hui asked after him. Well enough. I'll treat you next time, Bai Hui said generously. Let's talk about it next time. Lu Chang'an didn't refuse. He was a person who took good care of other people's mood. After all, Bai Hui helped him hammer bricks all afternoon. I'm pretty much what you think. I don't eat everything, but I want to experience everything, Bai Hui said eagerly. The feeling of dining in a top restaurant must be very ritualistic, but I don't dare to go alone. Are you using fresh ingredients? In addition to being eaten, what other things are not allowed to enter the restaurant? Lu Chang'an ate his noodles incomprehensibly. Bai Hui wants to be cute, for example, saying because I am a cute little white rabbit, I will be eaten and so on, but I feel that this is only suitable for saying to my boyfriend. If I say it now, Lu Chang'an will probably put down the utensils in your hands and politely tell her, you succeeded in making me lose my appetite. Goodbye. I'm not a young lady. I'm a little timid when going to high-end places. Isn't it normal to be afraid of embarrassing yourself? Bai Hui admitted unwillingly, because she felt that An Nuan was not a young lady, but An Nuan might not be. She shows timidity, maybe because she is accompanied by Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui felt that Lu Chang'an might be the kind of person who would count the teeth when the megalodon opened its mouth in front of him. Then just don't go. Don't you think it's very attractive to have a meal with a ritualistic feel? This is about sacrificing the basics. The essence of dining is to taste the food, not to do something that is not enough before putting the food into your mouth. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Girls are different. Actually, dancing is also a kind of ritual. Next time you have a meal, ask a dancing master to perform for you before eating. It will be quite ritualistic, Lu Chang'an suggested sincerely. Bai Hui took a deep breath and stopped talking to Lu Chang'an about this matter. This was probably the so-called difference in outlook. How could An Nuan tolerate Lu Chang'an? Bai Hui rolled her eyes and looked at Lu Chang'an while eating. Lu Chang'an finished eating it quickly. The dish was okay, but it didn't feel amazing at all. It was just a dish that was fresh and not interesting to order a second time. Bai Hui ate a little slower, but the portion was not much, so she finished it while Lu Chang'an was drinking water. Why are you going? After walking out of Bailong Center, Bai Hui patted his beautiful t-shirt. This was a famous brand. Although Bai Hui was reluctant to buy a bunch of regular-priced new products in the counter, he still bought some discount items. Go home and read. I also want to read a book. Can you recommend a writer to me? Bai Hui said with great interest. William Willis. I've never heard of them. Bai Hui knows a lot of writers. Most of them are from textbooks. There are also many authors who have appeared in TV series. Bai Hui will also follow their original works, such as 3 Lifetimes and 10 Miles of Peach Blossom, Herding Clouds on the Sea, Feng Qiu Huang and so on. Bai Hui likes to watch them. Willis is a German-American who worked as a sailor. He later created many works based on his various real-life adventures. He began to go to sea on a sailboat when he was a teenager, and once crossed the Pacific on a raft. When he was 7 years old, when he was 10 years old, he went to sea for the last time and died on the way. He spent his life loving what he liked. He was an amazing person. If you look at his works, you will gain courage from them and you will not go to the restaurant. I have stage fright. Lu Chang'an waved his hand, goodbye. Snored. In fact, in the final analysis, I just don't want to go with her, but. Shit. Bai Hui rolled her eyes and looked at Lu Chang'an's leaving figure. Lu Chang'an feels that people nowadays are increasingly confused about the fact that labor and reading can basically solve more than 80% of the problems in daily life. Lu Chang'an is not interested in helping Bai Hui solve this stupid problem. Now, as a whole, one of the problems faced by women is that a considerable number of girls are stupid and idle. They think that in such an environment with great pressure in life, as long as they can just let your future significant other bear the pressure. But this has nothing to do with him. Lu Chang'an just habitually observes some phenomena of the current era. I don't have any money to read. Lu Chang'an received a text message from Shang Guandandan. This little girl is extremely smart. Not only can she read on her mobile phone, but she can also use it to send text messages. Of course, she had learned it long ago. You can go search it, it's free of charge. But these authors are so pitiful. They are always sick, or hit by cars, have broken bones, catch colds, fevers, and headaches. They often have accidents at home. They are also chased, kidnapped, and even castrated by readers. It's so miserable, I feel so sorry for you. That's true. Lu Chang'an gave her 100 yuan, you can read books by slow authors. 100 yuan can last a year and a half. Shang Guandandan didn't reply to him anymore, and Lu Chang'an didn't care. After all, she still helped him somewhat, such as helping him discover 2 bat invasions. But how did she discover it? She probably wouldn't tell Lu Chang'an this question. Out of curiosity, Lu Chang'an looked at Shang Guandandan's coffin. Why did he want to snatch her pony carriage back then? Shang Guandandan's little carriage, this is a real historical event. My gums are red and swollen today. I feel like my body has been filled with poisonous fire lately. I'm physically weak, my kidneys are weak, and I'm feeling all sorts of uncomfortable. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 271. Lu Chang'an was deeply impressed by the bronze coffin. He frowned and thought for a while. He tried to recall Shang Guandandan's little carriage and found it a bit difficult. When a person walks slowly in a primeval forest, hundreds of thousands or even millions of square kilometers of forest, along the way, the climate changes, and the biological communities are different, but in fact, even if you stay in it for hundreds of years, after 1,000 years, I don't have any special memories. Not to mention being carried around by ocean currents in circles in the center of the ocean, flowing in underground rivers for countless years, sitting on the bottom of the sea and watching the mountains slowly rise and break through the sea level to form new continents. These things are at most fragmented pictures and information. It's just a retrieval point. It's hard to leave any deep memories in the hazy state of these years. On the contrary, after the emergence of human civilization, countless scenes have been consciously or unconsciously recorded in the life integrated into it, many. I remember a lot about Shang Guandandan, but it is impossible to clearly see all the details of my encounters at that time. Lu Chang'an sat down, closed his eyes, and began to slowly and carefully look through his memories. This is a very difficult thing. Many people have tried to find their earliest memories, but it is often just one picture. It is almost impossible to search for the scene and more details based on that picture. Lu Chang'an was calm, and many pictures appeared in his mind. He seemed to be in his own mind, flipping through it with his own hands. At this time, he did not receive any information from the outside world. The sound of wind, the sound of leaves, the cool air, mosquitoes are climbing, the hustle and bustle of the streets in the distance, these interferences are blocked. Just like many computers, when running high-load programs or tasks, it is best to put down the mouse and not click around, otherwise it may crash. The first image that came to mind turned out to be a black dragon, huge and huge. Memory point 1, the black dragon came out of Nanshan and drank from the Wei River. Where it went, the mountains were undulating, more than 60 miles long, with its head facing the Wei River and its tail reaching Fanchuan. Xiao He supervised the construction of Viang Palace, beheaded the dragon and built it. The mountain was the foundation is not built in a false way, but for the sake of shape. Memory point 2, the Book of Songs Xiao Hanjian Zishi Ting Xiao, how is the night? Viang at night, the light in the courtyard. Viang's name is commonly used from slaves to princes and emperors. The focus of Lu Chang'an's memory is of course Viang Palace. Memory point 3, there are 3 main roads in the Viang Palace, 2 parallel to the east and west, 1 running through the north and the south. There is Tianlu Palace in the north, which is the earliest national library. In the picture, there is Sima Qian who wrote historical records. This memory point there was a confusing scene, and what Lu Chang'an was looking for was Shang Guan Dandan and her pony carriage. Memory point 4, Kailan Pavilion, which contains portraits of Huo Guang, Zhang Engshi, Han Zheng, Zhao Congguo, Wei Xiang, and others. The brilliance of Kailan Pavilion soared to the sky, and even Lu Chang'an's memory began to blur, so Lu Chang'an skipped this position. Memory point 5, Jiaofang Palace, Mulan is used as rafters, apricot wood is used as beams and columns, and the texture must be very elegant. The roof is covered with gold foil, the facade is decorated with jade, and the gilded copper pavement is inlaid with many precious stones. The palace the walls are painted with paprika and mud, which is warm and fragrant. The main hall faces north and south, and there are double Ks in front of the hall. The K in front of the hall is definitely not something that can be done in ordinary palaces, because this is the residence of the queen. This is it, the picture in Lu Chang'an's mind is fixed at this position, as if walking in it, there is a feeling that a living person is trapped in a space where time and space are stagnant. Everything is so clear and the colors are bright. Lu Chang'an looks at the distinctive style. The window pattern, walking up from the right side of the slope in front of the hall, the purple ground, the golden wall strips, and the rare jade inlaid in it. Lu Chang'an walked through the main hall and walked to the garden, and finally saw the small carriage. The 2 short fruit horses were as quiet as specimens, pulling the special cart. Lu Chang'an approached and was somewhat surprised to see many familiar patterns on the cart, except for some related to sacrifices to the underworld. The patterns, those mythical beasts, dragons, phoenixes, cloud patterns, and other patterns are found on the bronze coffin and on the car. The most important thing is that the style is exactly the same, and it seems to be the work of the same paintbrush. In Lu Chang's silent memory scene, a girl who shouldn't have appeared at all at this time, held up her skirt, jumped up and down, and ran out happily. She was wearing the queen's casual clothes, and her childish face revealed her innate elegance. The improvement in her physique accumulated through pampering, and pampering made her skin as clear as jade. In this unclear situation, it seemed as if it had been smeared with moonlight. Just when Lu Chang'an was surprised that there was such a person who suddenly ran in the scene he recalled, the girl suddenly looked around, her eyes full of doubts, and snorted coldly, "It must be that unfilial son who wants to steal my little one. There's a carriage." After saying that, she turned her head and stared at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an suddenly woke up from his memory, opened his eyes, and took a long breath. The feeling just now was as if time and space had caused him to return to the Viang Palace 2000 years ago. Why did this happen? It was as if he had just eaten with Bai Hui alone, but when he recalled it, he realized that An Nuan was sitting at the same table with them and staring at him. That scene, never happened. But it appeared in his memory, lifelike, and the girl's eyes were vivid and majestic. This is how the same thing? Lu Chang'an looked at the carriage in front of him with confusion, and slowly walked into the carriage. Could it be that Shang Guandandan had caused interference to him? Or maybe it was actually my own memory that just became clear. That's not right, because the other pictures are all still, only the one just now is dynamic, and the Vyang Palace in the picture, including the little carriage, are still. Shang Guan ran out, but it broke the calmness of the picture. Did you interfere with me with your baby just now? Lu Chang'an asked bluntly. Shang Guandandan said nothing. I was just recalling some things in Vyang Palace, when I was the emperor, Lu Chang'an continued. What good memories are there? Shang Guandandan sent him a message. Lu Chang'an was speechless. With a mobile phone, she couldn't say anything. How troublesome would it be to send a message? Apart from chatting and talking about things seriously, Lu Chang'an didn't like to send messages. I found some similarities between your little carriage and this coffin. They are both your treasures, Lu Chang'an continued. My darling. I know it's yours, so I'll ask. Don't ask, I turned off the phone. Lu Chang'an really had nothing to do with the stepmother who was lying in the coffin and could not come out, but he felt that the abnormality in his memories just now must be related to Shang Guandandan, or to this mysterious coffin. I don't believe you will never come out, Lu Chang'an thought patiently. Anyway, it's just to satisfy curiosity. It doesn't matter if we know this kind of thing 100 or hundreds of years later. The mobile phone can fully display the modern world to Shang Guandandan. She is full of curiosity about this world. I don't believe that she, a country bumpkin empress dowager from more than 2,000 years ago, can bear not to come out and take a look. Lu Chang'an pointed at the coffin and said, take it, let's see who can outlast the other. Lu Chang'an did not continue to recall in the most strenuous way, but sat there and recalled the many people and things he remembered in his mind. After a while, the moisture in the air gradually increased, and it rained during the night. Lu Chang'an had been soaked in the rain all night and was soaked all over. He slowly stood up, returned home, took off his clothes, took a shower, and put on clean clothes. It's daybreak. Lu Chang'an had already known that it rained on July 7th of the lunar calendar. After all, he could put a needle in a water bowl for divination, he could catch spiders and watch them build webs, and he was also very familiar with meteorological symptoms. But he knew it would rain today because he went to see the weather forecast. The weather forecast is very accurate. Lu Chang'an does not find rain annoying like ordinary people. People who have nothing to do often feel that rain makes them feel more at ease. While having breakfast, Bai Hui sent a message. Instead of asking where Lu Chang'an and An Nuan were dating, he wished Lu Chang'an a happy Chinese Valentine's Day and as happy as the cowherd and the weaver girl. Doesn't this seem a little wrong? Lu Chang'an didn't care and replied with 2 words, rebound. Are you a primary school student? Bai Hui replied again. Lu Chang'an ignored her, and Qin Yinan also sent him a blessing message, including a selfie of her holding Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang was sleeping with his mouth open. It turns out that fairies also look like this when sleeping. I'll show this photo to Zhu Huntang next time Lu Chang'an saved it. If Zhu Huntang comes to annoy him in the future, he will show it to Zhu Huntang. Maybe it will be useful. There was even a text message from Gao Dui, Happy Chinese Valentine's Day, Chang'an. I have arrived at school, but the unfamiliar environment reminds me of the familiar attached high school. I think of you and my classmates. I decided to finish reading Introduction to the Explicit Finite Element Method for today. Nonlinear Transient Dynamics, the electronic version of this book cost me more than 800. I don't know why I read this thing. A girl recommended it to me. She asked me to go to the library with her to discuss it today. Finally, I read it again. You can now enjoy the feeling of studying hard. Come on, Lu Chang'an laughed, then thought of Miao Yingying. Of course, he didn't mean to take pleasure in others' misfortune. Putting away his mobile phone, Lu Chang'an reached out to touch his hair and tidy it up. He looked up and saw the girl he had arranged to meet today. She was holding a big umbrella and carefully covering the 2 bags in front of her chest, avoiding the puddles. Seeing Lu Chang'an walking over, a slightly shy smile filled his face. After all, it was the first Valentine's Day after being together. Girls always like to have a sense of ceremony. She said she would meet at his house today, so she rushed over early in the morning despite the rain. Lu Chang'an liked her very much. Serious. There are 2,729 votes now, and by 6 p.m. tomorrow there will be 2,850 votes for a 3-in-1 chapter, 2,950 monthly tickets, and a 4-in-1 chapter. Please don't buy tickets, thank you, they were deducted last time.